Jai Jinendra, everyone who will be joining us for this session. And firstly, I would like to thank with Prashant ji for giving us your valuable time for this session. And it's an honor to have a word with you. Before we begin with this session, I'd like to just very briefly introduce Jito. So Jito is a worldwide body of Jain businessmen, industrialists, knowledge workers, and professionals with 67 national chapters and 11 international chapters with more than 3,000 families. Jito Professional Forum, JPF, is one of the flagship project of Jito, in a unique platform to involve, network, engage Gen professionals globally, and work towards professional development and growth. Another landmark project of Jito is Jito Business Network, which primarily caters to business communities. JBN is the objective of unable to engage for economic empowerment and is organizing Nahar JBN Mahakumbh, a global virtual expo with the sole agenda of providing a platform to business networks for over 400 plus exhibitors and 1 lakh plus expected visitors across 27 plus. So it's gonna be a huge event. And without any further ado, the reason why we all are here is to get some thoughts and some insights from Prashant Chen. So I think so Prashant sir does not need any introduction per se. Uh, all of us here and at Jito and globally know Prashant sir. But just a very brief background before we start the Q&A. So Prashant Jain grew up in Hyderabad, India, and has been graduated from Shri Venkateswara University in Electrical and Electronics Engineering. And thereafter, he attended management programs from IIM Bangalore, Ahmedabad, and is also an MBA from European School of Management and Technology, Berlin. And more than that, what actually impresses all of us is that he has a diverse experience in industry and energy sector, including renewables, and has held management positions in oil, gas, power, and renewable energy. Sir has also served many organizations like Siemens, Schneider, and now GE. And in India and in US, he has been active in various state bodies and forums and is associated in Jainin, Jito, Arham Yog, and many such prestigious institutions. So without any further ado, uh, I think so. What we would like to know more about you is the brief description of G Power in India and globally. So where does it stand? What does it do? And how are you able to run such a massive empire?
Hi Ankit, thank you for the kind
Over to
introduction.
you, sir.
Ankit, thank you for the kind introduction. Talking about G Power India Limited, I would like to do this in two aspects. One, the company itself, and the more interesting part in this context is the transformation happening in the power sector itself. So G Power India Limited is currently having a backlog of, it started with a backlog of close to $1 billion. It is a company that is based in providing sustainable, affordable power, but this is conventional fossil power. The JEPIL is primarily into manufacturing of steam turbines, generators, boilers, air quality control systems, electrical and automation for coal-fired power plants. We also engage a bit into hydro power and a very small portion of gas. That is the portfolio of G Power India Limited. We have 2,000, roughly 1,500 employees engaged in G Power India Limited. I also am responsible for G Steam Power South Asia, which includes the portfolio of nuclear. So in these two portfolios, we have two factories, one in GE Power India Limited in Durgapur that manufactures the pressure parts for boilers and EQCS equipments and mills for the fire plants, and the Sanand factory, which is a part of GE IIPL, manufactures the nuclear turbines, the steam turbines and generator. So these are the two factories. We have about 44, 45 plus sites where we are currently executing projects on boilers. We have about, so we are implementing the fossil-based power plants. And here we are one of the leading players in the country with, so if you look at the private sector, we are one of the largest players in the country with end-to-end technology, owning the technology and doing the erection, the EPC work in the area of say FGDs, etc. So now that is about JEPL and about GE Steam Power India in brief. Talking about the sector, power sector itself in the country is going through a massive transformation. So while we as a company were supplying the new equipment for new power plants to the EPC partners or to the customers, the equipments and services. On the other side, for the last 3 to 4 years, we know there has been no new fossil-based power plant ordered by the country. So this sector is going through a massive transformation. There is no new further addition of capacity as in the new fired coal plants. So that is the manufacturing side. It's a major challenge. So JEPL is now focusing on the emissions on the existing coal-fired power plants and repositioning itself as an emission and services company for managing the energy transition to enable renewable integration. Why so? Because if you look at the electricity today, if I look at the light bulb in the house, about 70% of electricity is coming today from coal-fired or fossil-fired plants in India today. That is the electricity coming in the household today. Now in 2030, as per the CEA estimates, 52% of electricity will still come from fossil plants or coal-fired plants. So there will be a huge need even in 2030 for the existing coal-fired assets. But these assets have to become more efficient, more environment friendly, and therefore we are providing the emission control, the FGDs, the NOx control equipments to these power plants. And that is where we have about 15% market share plus in the country and the big backlog. So that's emissions. And in future, for the next 10 years, we do still see a good potential for providing renewable integration. As more and more renewable starts coming into the grid, by 2030, we anticipate still 50% of the power, 52% of power will come from the fossil assets. But these assets have to do the balancing part. And coal-fired power plants are designed like a car to be run in fifth gear. They have been designed to run at base load. Operating at slightly lower loads, they have more emissions, they have more maintenance, and they have challenges to be able to, with the auxiliary consumption and so on and so forth. So to make these plants flexible, there are solutions that we provide. So emissions, efficiency, and sustainability is the area that we will focus going forward. Ankit, that's briefly where we are today in the transformation in JEPL.
Oh, okay. So quite interesting phase that you are in currently, where the new coal-fired power plants are not being ordered, but the old ones need to be run at the highest capacity to ensure optimum output. Uh, just a follow-up question on that. If you can just share some more insights on how the last entire decade has been, and where do you see, you have answered most part of it, but where do you see the next decade will be for both power, be it coal-fired or be it renewables or integration of both of them?
I think that's a very interesting story. If I have to say, the last 10 years was big power plants, large transmission lines, centrally producing power and dispatching power at the long range grid, and regulated by the state utilities or the government at a fixed power purchase agreement and being distributed to the small consumers. So that was the last decade. There have been reforms that the government has been proposing. But if I look at the next 10 years, what is likely to change is we may not need all those large power plants anymore. They will continue to operate at the base load. But in future, we see many distributed smaller power plants from various renewable sources coming into the grid. And we see that with the future, the customers will probably produce their own power, dispatch it to the grid, and buy power from the grid. And if I may say, in next 10 years, the purchase of electricity and supply of electricity, the market dynamics would be very different as compared to what we have seen in the last decade. So I think we are entering into a major transformation in the sector. In the next 10 years, you will see a huge transformation from central large power plants to distributed generation, distribution, production, and maybe more dynamics on purchase sale of electricity and more flexibility. So in a regulated environment from last 10 years to a much more dynamic environment in the next 10 years is what I see as a major transformation happening in the industry, Ankit.
Okay, okay. I think so. We will have to have couple of following questions on the insights that you are sharing. Uh, but going ahead, if you can share some of the insights or some stories for any major expansion, diversion decision that was taken by you, and what was the rationale behind it? The reason for asking this is because all the young audience who is listening to it would like to have similar thought process when we are looking at any new venture or at any expansion strategy.
So I think the core I would like to share is if we identify the problem we are going to solve, it helps in creating a business case and a win-win for everyone. So I believe there are three stakeholders: the individual, the business, and the environment. And if there is a value proposition that you bring on the table, which is a win-win-win for yourself, for the business, and for the environment, then you create a sustainable business. Let me share an example now. When we look at the renewable foray that the entire world is taking and that India is taking at the same time, and when we look at the strategy for India, for the next 10 years, what decision that we took is we will continue to offer services to steam or coal-fired power plants. We will continue to provide emission control equipments to coal-fired power plants. We'll expand our services portfolio in and do maybe a lot more like operations and maintenance of coal-fired power plants because we see opportunities for the next 10 years. Now, this is a difficult cause where the entire world or even investors are now moving away from coal-fired assets. In India, we see a need for the country, which will still have a huge demand from existing coal-fired assets, at least for the next 10 years, as I discussed earlier. And therefore, it is very important for us to find a sustainable, environment-friendly solution for these plants to be enable the renewable integration. And we bring in those technologies that allow addition of new renewable capacity to the grid. Storage will not be adequate in the electrical distribution for the next 10 years to fully compensate for the fossil power that is taken off the grid. So the balancing that is required on the grid will still need to be done by the fossil assets in the country. And therefore, this transition is what we have decided we will enable. And that is the strategy that we are focusing on currently. But again, the three cornerstones are okay. For the individual competence in the team, do we have that competence? The answer is yes. Do we think we can make a business out of it for the next 10 years? Probably yes. And do we think it is environmentally sustainable? The answer is yes, because this will, though being in the sector, you are enabling renewable integration. And therefore, this does provide a kind of guidance to the strategic decision that we took in the recent years, Ankit.
Okay, okay. I think so. Being from renewable energy, I think so. Your answer still shocked me with the way that the strategies that you guys are developing. Uh, it's really mind-boggling. G has actually one of the best standard operating procedures in the world. I think so. Majority of our audience would have either done MBA or would be knowing about it. Is that G has actually been case studies in most of the courses that we do. Now, after having so many SOPs, most of the organizations fall into bureaucracy, and what work could have been actually done in 3 days, sometimes takes 3 weeks. So at GE, how are you able to still stay agile and still have the processes in place so that there is nothing that goes wrong?
Thanks, Ankit. I think this is a very interesting concept that GE has been implementing over the years. And that is the lean mindset or implementing the lean. And the current chairman of G, which is Mr. Larry Culp, has brought in rigor around lean. So the way we operate now within G, with the monthly operating review or the operating work or the leader standard work, is that we have divided the priorities among in the organization primarily into three areas. One is the Hoshin Kanri, which kind of focuses on the strategic focus on what is the breakthrough that we want to achieve in 3 to 5 years. The second part is, okay, how can I do continuous improvement, at the same time implement the strategy. And the third part is purely focusing on daily management and improving and continuous improvement. So that is the process that we are following, which is called leader standard work. The exciting part about this is that it connects the top management to the last guy on the floor or to the last person on the field, and it shortens the cycle of communication from these levels, which is often the reason for bureaucracy. So the leaders are getting a lot more engaged and the rhythms which were in the past, the cadence of review is now almost on a daily management system, where we connect the strategic priorities to the operational priorities, and the operational priorities and the KPIs are matching the financial KPIs. And all these are connected together and visible to the last level on the floor. This cadence is how we are improving continuously on our performance, keeping on track focus on the operational priorities, and making sure we are delivering on the strategic priorities. We do believe this helps keeping bureaucracy off and engages the leadership on daily management.
Okay, so I think so. When this has been, when you are saying all of this, I'm actually making note to see how well we can implement it at Wari, because this is really what going for. If we can just have a follow-up question on that, you have, when we take decisions, sometimes they don't go the way that we had thought to, or it can be either due to external forces or due to internal constraints. If you can share one of the story where the decision went wrong, but because of the process that we just shared, and major disaster was avoided.
So I think I can share a story which is probably off context, but will give you a sense on how certain areas help. Say, for example, focus on safety. Yeah. So why safety is the first and most important aspect in operations is because safety is number one, good for the environment and safekeeping of the employees and the workers that work for you. Second, it also improves in productivity. And third, it also creates a profitable execution plan. So how does this work? Give me a second. So I'm sharing an example which is tactical, but it'll give you a sense on what happens. So we were reviewing a near miss on a site where a worker got injured transporting certain material from the warehouse to the workstation at a site. And when we were reviewing the safety incident by a process of review on why did we have this safety incident, we discovered that uh, the area that we unload the material is far away from the site where we need to install the material. And if you follow the lean mindset, this is a waste which is transportation, which can be avoided if we get the material dispatched closer to the site where the work needs to be done. Now, we were reviewing a safety by process where we had a miss on safety. And while doing that miss on safety, we discovered that, okay, we could have actually saved time. We could have actually saved transportation cost and done it faster had we unloaded the material at the point of implementation. So we gave this learning out of this failure to all the sites to say, hey, look, safety is important. While you follow safety, make sure that the transportation of material is avoided at site and you dispatch and unload the material where you need to get the work done and identify waste. Now, this has not only helped improve safety, but this has also helped improve the operational performance. So there are such examples that we have, which where once you review the process as a team, that process helps you to improve other areas in the system as well.
Okay, okay, great. So earlier in our chat, you had mentioned that India is deregularizing generation of power, and instead of regulating it heavily, it is now allowing individuals to set their own power plant and then consume it. So what we generally call is consumers. Do you think this concept is only a wave, or do you think this will have a permanent effect, and this will actually impact the way that we actually produce and consume power in India?
I think that is happening today. Even today, that is happening because if you look at the uh, bottom of the segment with electric rickshaws, they are basically recharging and they are producing in a way energy that they need today. Of course, they're still using the grid, but in a way they have kind of found a new model of buying and selling electricity. Yeah, so it is not regulated today per se, but the transformation is happening today in several areas, in the way the consumers are purchasing electricity or using electricity. Now, is that happening from the regulations? The Electricity Amendment Act is in the Parliament, which is being tabled currently, which is further talking about deregulation. So there are reforms that the government is planning. We are not there yet on the prosumer today, but we are in that direction. Directionally, we are getting there for sure. Uh, you see that in a way where in the captive power industry today, a lot of industrial customers are producing their own power, using it, and they are dispatching to the grid. It is happening at the industrial scale today. We have seen now with solar, several smaller industries do that with their rooftop solar, that they are now producing solar and selling. So you have seen the large customers do that, industrial houses. We are now seeing the smaller industries do that as well. We have seen several small and medium scale industrial customers do that. uh, there are very limited residential consumers who've done that, but this transition in my view is happening in the right direction. uh, and I see that in the next 5 to 2 years this will become a reality. The question is, okay, how, by when, but I feel that this is the future. We can question or debate the timing, but this will become a big part of the electrical dynamics in the next 5 to 10 years from now.
Okay, okay. Right. So one last question that I have, and I think so. This is one thing that our audience is also waiting for, is that as a young entrepreneur, if I want to enter into the field of power, be it coal-fired, be it fossil fuel, or be it renewable, where do you think is still the blue ocean opportunity where I can still start and I have a good growth in this field?
So I think there is it depends. For example, if I look at the renewable sector, there are tremendous opportunities for new entrepreneurs in the renewable segment, because renewable is still, so to say, regulated, and there are opportunities. On the other side, there are technological challenges on the renewable sector, but there is still future potential. So for sure, there is potential. Now the question is scalability. Yeah, is that scalable to become $1 billion business or a $10 billion business? So I think that I will answer that in two bits. One, is there potential for the next 10 years in conventional power? The answer is yes. Is there potential in renewable power? The answer is absolutely yes. Now the question is, what is the size and the scale? And is there one business model you think will continue for the next 20 years? I think we are going through a disruption in the segment of power. I will say it is going, we are discovering the new energy alternative as a global community, not only in India, but everywhere across the world, where we are trying to find the right balance. When do you get away from the grid? When do you really get fully renewable? At the same time, how do you manage the economics? So in this area, the scalability is the question, but there are tremendous opportunities for entrepreneurs in the small segment in creating impact. So storage technologies, there is huge potential. How can you make storage competitive, more environment friendly? How can you provide distributed generation alternatives, for example, biomass or gas or several hydrogen fuel. There are several alternatives that are emerging today, and so many alternatives are distributed generation alternatives. So when you have so many alternatives competing for that future of renewables, the real question is, okay, which one will be the billion-dollar business is the tough one to answer. Will it provide opportunities? Yes, tremendous amount of opportunities.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for wonderful insights. And it has not only engaged us throughout the session, but it has also opened few thoughts that we thought it may not be possible in India per se. And I think so. Myself being from renewable energy, I have had so much learning. People from other industries will definitely have a lot many things to take away from your session. With this, I would like to thank you and everyone for joining this session.
Thank you,
Thank
Ankit.
you.
It was my pleasure as well.